Hey guys, it's Danny. Happy New Year. I hope everybody's okay. I hope you all had a great time. If you went partying, welcome back to my channel. Today we shall talk about orange orchids. We're gonna start the year with those orchids that I personally love the most in my collection. It just seems to me that orange is not a very common color for orchids. I see pinks, I see purples, whites, but where are the oranges and the reds, right? So when it comes to red, I don't have a very big collection, but orange orchids, I discovered I have quite a few. And PS, please excuse the commotion you might hear outside. There's a bunch of cats arguing and a dog trying to bring something to the conversation, and it's been going on since morning, so do excuse the sounds of nature. So with that said, today I will list my favorite orange orchids that I own in my collection. I have lost a few, sadly, along the years. I shall not talk about those. I'm only going to refer to the orchids that I still have in my collection, talk a little bit about them, and I hope you'll enjoy them and you'll discover new orchids you might not know about. So with that said, let us start with, I think, my absolute favorite of the bunch. And for those of you who know me, you already know what my absolute favorite orchid is. It has been voted Orchid of 2017, and I have a funny suspicion you will see more of her on my channel. It is the Perreiraara, currently reclassified as Procatavola Francis Fox. The Francis Fox is a blend of yellows and rusty colors, oranges, gold, brown, spotting, a little bit of purple as well. It's just a rainbow of really warm, really sweet colors that just make it absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Not only the color is beautiful, but take a look at that shape. You don't really see flowers these wild all that often, do you? Well, this is a complex intergeneric. It is a Cattleya type orchid. If the shape and colors were not enough, well, this orchid is a very easy grower. She takes the same care as any other Cattleya in my opinion. And bonus, she's fragrant. She smells like a Prosthechea during nighttime. In the daytime, there isn't much of a fragrance, but the Prosthechea made sure that the fragrance is one of those very strong, very perfumey type of fragrances. Mind you, it can be slightly overwhelming, particularly if you have a lot of flowers on it, so try not to sleep with this orchid in the same room, because even if you might not be sensitive to fragrances, it might still be a little too much. That's how strong the perfume is. Next up, another favorite that you have seen recently, but I still have to talk about it because I love it so much. It has been voted the most popular orchid in December. It is the BL Golden Peacock, currently reclassified as a Procatavola, since one of its parents, which used to be an Encyclia, is currently a Prosthechea, which is the vitellina, another orange orchid which we will see. This again is a Cattleya complex intergeneric. It is absolutely easy to grow yet again if you can do well with Cattleyas. The Golden Peacock does have just the slightest fragrance in the morning time, but it's definitely not as fragrant as the Francis Fox, so I would not go and purchase her for the fragrance. I would, however, purchase her for the pattern and the colors. Remaining in the realm of Cattleya, here is the beautiful Chester. It is currently a Cattleya, but it has been reclassified. It used to be a Sophro Cattleya. Do you hear that cat? 'Tis the season. I cannot do anything about it. And no, they're not my cats, they're stray cats. Anyway, back to the Cattleya Chester. It used to be a Sophronides, which is a group of Cattleya type orchids which remain really tiny. Some of them are rather cool growing, unlike most of the Cattleyas, but this particular one did fantastic during my summertime. I do consider it to be an easy grower, and the blooms lasted unexpectedly long actually. As you might have seen it in my videos, they lasted almost 3 months or so, I think, which is amazing for a Cattleya. Side note, Cattleyas are not known for long-lasting flowers. There are only a few which can go over the 1 month mark, still looking impeccable. Most of them will start to fade away, will start to look a little bit washed out. This particular one lasted a lot. It is not fragrant though, but just look at those colors. And if you don't have a lot of space on your shelf, well, this is a tiny orchid, so maybe it is a choice you might want to consider. Next up, a Phalaenopsis, and this you can actually find in grocery shops or supermarkets or garden centers, and if you cannot find them there, then definitely eBay, Amazon, orchid nurseries, whatever orchid shop you have in your area, there's a very high chance you will find this orchid there because she's not rare. This is Phalaenopsis Goldstaff or Goldstaff. You'll have the names of these orchids in the description and also on the screen. I am pretty much talking from memory here. So this Phalaenopsis is a standard complex hybrid. It is quite big, but the flowers are rather tiny. Not to worry, this orchid produces a lot of flowers. It is prone to branching, and also you can see the orange is more a combination between the yellow gold and the darker brownish veining, but overall it looks absolutely orange to me. And bonus, it does also have a fragrance. Now don't get too excited, it's nothing like the Masdevallias or the Cattleyas or very perfumey type of scents, but it's something. I personally am not a fan. I've encountered this fragrance in many Phalaenopsis. It is slightly lemony or citrusy, but it has an underlayer of dust to it. I cannot say it's a creamy, smooth fragrance. It's rather dusty, rather raspy, if I can describe it as such. So I personally would not purchase it for the fragrance and would not get my hopes high, but there are a few people who really enjoy the fragrance. But flower-wise, I consider it absolutely superb. Just look at that display. More than anything, it is a prolific bloomer, and I do consider the color to be just perfect for how she blooms. Next up, we have a Vendacious orchid with a former name of Rhynchoredes Bangkok Sunset. It's currently reclassified, but I forget the exact name. Check it on the screen and in the description. This particular Vendacious orchid is rather tiny. Again, very, very good for those growth spaces which would rather be more economic with space. She takes a long time to grow. Mainly, she will grow in height, not in width. It does stay rather tiny for the potential of Vendacious orchids in general. The flowers are really, really tiny as well, but they are produced in great numbers. If the beautiful sunsetty colors didn't impress you, well, this orchid is also fragrant, and the fragrance is fantastic. It is not very sweet, it is not very, very powerful. It is, however, very floral and delightful. To me, it smells like spring flowers, and it's just a very, very balanced fragrance that I don't think will be repulsive for anybody. And if you ever see this orchid for sale at an affordable price to you, definitely I would give it a go. It is not a finicky orchid. It doesn't really need as much bright light as most other Vandas. She's a rather intermediate type of grower, so you can get away with it in a more bright, shady type of situation as well. Next up, we have an Oncidium, and needless to say, it is my favorite from all the Twinkles. It is the Oncidium Twinkle, variety cinnamon. Sometimes you will find it as variety orange. The flowers are really tiny, but really, really beautiful, and they're produced in great numbers. Bonus, this orchid is fragrant. It smells really sugary, really sweet. It is one of my favorite fragrances, to be fully honest with you guys, but I can see how some people are not going to be happy with it. It is that type of love it or hate it fragrance. But the plant itself is a joy because it is a rather tiny orchid, again fitted for small spaces, that produces pretty large and branchy and full of flowers, flower spikes. Twinkles take the same care as any other Oncidium, sphagnum moss, bark, whatever you name it, for these orchids. Just as long as you maintain them wet, they should be happy. For me, sphagnum moss is the way to go for the moment, but these types of Oncidiums are definitely worth the trouble. Next up, we have the Encyclia vitellina, currently reclassified as Prosthechea vitellina. This is a species, and it is one of the parents of the first orchid we talked about, the golden peacock, and I think we can see a little bit of a resemblance, although the vitellina is a lot darker in color. The vitellina is borderline orange-red, in my opinion, but it's a very, very flashy color. One of those very saturated colors that if you look at it on a white background or a different contrasting background, background, you get a little bit of an eyesore. But she's a beautiful orchid nonetheless, and with good care, she can put on a really spectacular show. This is a rather cool grower, unlike other Prosthecheas, but it has always done well for me, even in my very warm climate. It sadly does not have a fragrance, but I think the color absolutely compensates, and as I was saying, with great care you can have a lot of wonderful, really red-orange flowers. Bonus, this is not a rare orchid and most orchid nurseries should have it. You will probably not find it at garden centers or flower shops. It's one of those, let's say, collector's items, but it's not a very rare orchid, and I think most orchid growers have this one in their collection. Time to see an epidendrum, and here is the Epidendrum radicans variety orange. The radicans is also known as the reed stem epidendrum, and it can come in a variety of colors, from reds to oranges to yellows and pinks even. I own a few of these, but I have to say the orange one is just breathtaking. It's just one of those very saturated colors. Gives you a little bit of an eyesore if you watch it against something contrasting, but it definitely stands out. And I really do like the shape of the inflorescence, this globe-like inflorescence that reed stem epidendrums put on. Not a fragrant orchid yet again, sadly. These orchids are not known for their fragrance, but with a bloom like that, I think we can overlook the non-fragrance aspect. Also, this is a sequential bloomer. The same rosette, if I can call it like that, can put on multiple rows of buds. And this is what happened with mine this summer. It did put on a few more shows, but they weren't as spectacular as the first show. But definitely you can get quite an extended blooming time from these orchids. Their care resembles that of the Cattleya quite a lot. They are hot growers and they can tolerate heat like nothing else. Be careful with sunlight depending on your territory, of course. In some territories they can be grown in full sunlight. In mine, not so much. There are some differences with my climate, but definitely bright light, intense heat, they just love it. They will thrive as long as you water them properly. And if we're talking about gold and orange colors, we need to talk about the gold digger. What a name for an orchid, right? It kind of digs at your heart. When you see this orchid in bloom, it's just wonderful. Given it's not a proper orange, but it is that beautiful, very golden yellow orange. And it is a Cattleya hybrid. It also possesses a slight fragrance that I personally love. Maybe I'm a little biased here. It smells a little bit like orange vitamins, and I have a thing for orange effervescent vitamins. But the fragrance is not very powerful, and you need to have the orchid in warmth and an intense bright light to sense anything. She's not a perfumed orchid, but she does have a little bit of a fragrance, which maybe depending on the individual can be more pronounced or rather faint. So don't purchase this orchid for the fragrance, but do purchase it for the wonderful display, for the wonderful color. This has been declared Orchid of the Month last year in one of the months. And great news, she does have buds growing, so hopefully we're gonna have a great display from her. Problem is, she's a big orchid. She's not tiny, she's not medium-sized, she's big, tall, and has big leaves. So if you can get over that, then everything should be just fine. Getting back a little bit to Phalaenopsis, one of my absolute favorite Phalaenopsis has to be the Mini Mark. Now, this is not a proper solid orange orchid, but it does have some elements which are just out of this world orange. Look at that lip. Isn't it a perfect orange? Yes, it is. So the Mini Mark has a orange lip and a few dotted orangey purple spots. All of these on a white background. The flowers are not very big, they're quite tiny, but they can be produced in large numbers. And this, again, is a typical Phalaenopsis complex hybrid. You can find it in flower shops or garden centers if you're lucky, but also in orchid nurseries. And typically, I noticed they sell as 2 plants in 1 pot, so even more flowers. But keep in mind, despite the name Mini Mark, it's not a miniature Phalaenopsis, definitely not as small as you can go with other flower shop mini Phalaenopsis. I would say it's a medium-sized one. The name actually refers to the flowers. The flowers are indeed very tiny but very appealing. Bonus, some of these individuals are fragrant. I have not encountered one. I'm not entirely sure what the name of the particular variety is. I think is home, but I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. Some of them can be fragrant, but I believe they have that lemony fragrance, which I personally find dusty. Some people don't find it dusty, so I'm not going out of my way to find a fragrant mini mark because I'm not sure if I'm gonna like the fragrance. However, though, the flowers are spectacular. Remaining in the realm of Phalaenopsis, here we have the Phalaenopsis brother Sara Gold. The flower has a really nice shape as well, it's rounded, and I do prefer this more, let's say, symmetric flower shape when it comes to Phalaenopsis at least. Mine is not particularly fragrant though. Actually, it doesn't have any type of fragrance, not even that dusty lemon, so I wouldn't go for fragrance, but definitely that color is absolutely superb. Now, sadly, throughout the orchid journey, of course, I did lose a few orchids. I did lose quite a few that were orange as well, but I will mention just one because I absolutely want to repurchase it, and I will do so this spring. It's not a rare orchid. I know I can find it, that's why I'm so confident. It's a Masdevallia, and this is the Masdevallia ignea. Look at that color. I kid you not, it is a very, very saturated and intense color in reality as well. Even though my camera sometimes has issue picking up reds and making them really saturated, a little more than they should be, but this particular one is very, very flashy in real life as well. The problem is, it's a Masdevallia, it's a cold grower, so if you don't get the setup right, then she's not gonna do so good. But I'm working on setups for warm climates or warm environments or home environments for those of you who, like me, really have to go through shoots and hoops to make a plant be happy without actually putting it in the refrigerator. The Masdevallia ignea is one of them. It's imprinted in my mind. I want her back. I lost my Masdevallia, but no surprise there. She's a cold grower and I didn't do my job properly. This year though, I do have promising prospects. So I wanted to mention her because she's one of those really, really fiery red colors with that beautiful veining that is more goldeny. It's just a wonderful orchid. And with that said, I think I shall end the list here. I do potentially have other orange orchids, but they haven't bloomed for me, or they didn't put on a great show that, you know, I can show and say, look how beautiful. So the list will go on. I will make a part 2 maybe at some point, but for now, I hope you've enjoyed seeing all of these orchids, and if you do enjoy orange as a color and you liked any of these orchids, do put them on the wish list and wait for the right time to make your purchase. All of these orchids I love. I consider to be great orchids, and I hope this video was useful. So with that said, you know the drill. Like or dislike this video below, subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And if you like YouTube to notify you whenever I upload a new video, just turn on notifications for my channel. Also, if you're interested in my setup and what I use in my grow space, do check the description. I list everything there. And with that said, Happy New Year once again. I hope it will be a prolific, healthy, and happy year for all of you guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!